Baby, you took me riding in your pocket. You gave me a star. But at a half a mile from heaven, you dropped me back down into this cold, cold world. I would not do that to a dog, baby. Oh, yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my beautiful family. I'd like to welcome you to the Mental House with me, your host, Khadija. Okay, all right. I'm going to talk about it today, people. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. Today, I'm going to talk about bipolar disorder, which is a lot of times confused with borderline personality disorder. Um, Again, I'm not a therapist, but most of these diagnoses and stuff like that, therapists and psychiatrists use this book right here, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's a pretty expensive book, but if you got a medical book, I'm sure we grew up with medical books in our house, and I'm sure a lot of y'all did too, especially if you got old parents and old grandparents. They always had a medical book in our house. What we didn't get was a statistical manual. And I'm not saying that this book is the be all end all, but it is like the mental health Bible and what the mental health professionals consider the blueprint, or pretty much the blueprint to trying to kind of figure out what's wrong. It's kind of like a guideline. Okay, so if you get a chance to pick this book up and look at it, it'll be fine. And if you get it even more courageous, have a copy of it in your home, because it's just good reading, and it's good to have. Okay, so again, today we're going to talk about bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is a mental illness that causes dramatic shifts in a person's mood, energy, and ability to think clearly. Okay? People with bipolar experience high and low moods known as mania and depression, which differ from the typical ups and downs that most people experience. And I think that's really important that people understand the mania part of it, because a long time ago they used to call bipolar disorder, if I remember correctly, manic depression. And a lot of musicians, a lot of people in the entertainment industry that I've been involved with, have worked with, I don't even want to name names, but a lot of people that I know for sure suffer from what I would consider some type of bipolar disorder, where they have these severe mood swings, or they have these episodes where they can go on for weeks, where they're extremely high and just like everything, like pulling everything out the closet, or writing 120 songs, and here they all are, let's do it. And then all of a sudden they'll go through a period where they just shut down, and then there's nothing going on. That is the mania. And a lot of times people get bipolar disorder mixed up with borderline. But I think the big difference, in my opinion, and I'm not a doctor, but just from my experience with the people and learning these labels and learning these behaviors, it seems that the bipolar person is more of a up and down. Anyway, the average age or onset is about 25, but it can occur in one's teens or more uncommonly in childhood. The condition affects men and women equally, with about 2.6% of the U.S. population diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and nearly 83% of cases classified were severe. Okay? If left untreated, bipolar disorder usually worsens. However, with good treatment plan and including a psychotherapy, medications, and a lifestyle change, a regular schedule, and early identification of the symptoms, many people will live well with this condition. Symptoms have a severity, and they can vary. A person with bipolar disorder may have distinct manic or depressed states, but may also have extended periods, sometimes years, without a symptom. A person can also experience both extremes simultaneously or in rapid sequence. Severe bipolar episodes of mania or depression may include psychotic symptoms such as hallucinations and delusions. Usually, these psychotic symptoms mirror a person's extreme mood. People with bipolar disorder who have a psychotic symptom may be wrongly diagnosed as having schizophrenia. One thing I want to also say is that most of these conditions and things that we talk about, they're not isolated. They usually run comorbid with some other kind of disorder. So you can very well be a bipolar person with borderline, or these things. It's like a scale, and they can run together. And I know a lot of people might be saying, well, hell, I act like this, or I have some of these symptoms, which I'm going to get into, and that's cool. It's just that when it overtakes your personality, it's just that when there's so much of this, and this is how I'm identifying you, this is what's a part of you all the time, is when it's problematic. Okay? Mania. To be diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a person must have experienced at least one episode of mania or hypomania. Hypomania is a milder form of mania. It doesn't include the psychotic episodes. People with hypomania can often function well in social situations or at work. Some people with bipolar disorder will have episodes of mania or hypomania many times throughout their life, and others experience them, only rarely. Although someone with bipolar may find an elevated mood of mania appealing, especially if it occurs after depression, the high does not stop at a comfortable, controllable level. Moods can rapidly become more irritable, behavior more unpredictable, and judgment more impaired. During these periods of mania, people frequently behave impulsively, make reckless decisions, and take unusual risks. Like buying a car, for instance, and then just buy the car, drive the car around, you test driven the car, and now all of a sudden, you've driven it, and then you purchase the car, and on your impulse or whatever, and then maybe a few days later you make this reckless decision. Now you're taking these risks, and now you're acting totally impulsively and erratic because you don't like the decision that you made, and then you begin to push that off on everybody else and make it a manic state. In fact, because of your behavior, I've seen it all. These are the kind of behaviors that permeate all around my circle. And if most people will be honest, they will say the same thing. Most of the times, in the hood, nobody wants to talk about these behaviors, because in the hood, everything goes, and everything is like you snitching, or just a bunch of crazy negative energy that makes it hard for people that are sick to get well. So I'm challenging y'all, and that's why I'm up here today, not because I'm some kind of damn doctor, but I'm up here today to challenge you with every myth, every programming, every nuance that you may have gotten in your neighborhood, and to challenge you to a different way of thinking, a different way of being. My brother Gat Turner said, the hood's a graveyard, a straight up cemetery full of walking corpses that talk obituaries. And I want y'all to remember that. That's what the hood represents, especially to me. Okay? The lows of bipolar depression are often so debilitating that people are unable to get out of bed. Typically, people experiencing a depressive episode have difficulty falling and staying asleep, while others sleep far more than usual. When people are depressed, even minor decisions such as what to eat for dinner can be overlooked. They may become obsessed with feelings of loss, personal failure, guilt, or helplessness. This negative thinking can lead to thoughts of suicide. The depressive symptoms that obstruct a person's ability to dysfunction must be present nearly every day of a person's life for at least 2 weeks in order to get a diagnosis. Depression associated with bipolar disorder may be more difficult to treat and require, a custom plan. So, the causes is genetics. Chances of developing bipolar disorder are increased if a child's parents and siblings have the disorder, but the role of genetics is not absolute. A child from a family with a history of bipolar may never develop the disorder. Studies of identical twins have found out even if one twin develops the disorder, the other may not. Stress. A stressful event such as a death in a family, an illness, a difficult relationship, divorce, or financial problems can trigger manic or depressive episodes. Thus, a person's handling of that stress may also play a role in how they develop the illness. Also, your brain structure and brain function. Brain scans cannot diagnose bipolar, yet researchers have identified subtle differences in the average size of activation in some brain patterns and the structures of some of the people that have been diagnosed with bipolar. All right. Now, they have it's 4 types of bipolar. Wow, I didn't know that. So let's go through this together. And please feel free, y'all, to leave comments below. I know these conversations nobody want to have. Some of you email me, but you don't leave comments. And I welcome that as well, so you can continue to email me at Hotmail. Well, information is in there. The description is in the box. But I just want to have some dialogue with y'all on the page if you're so bold or feel inclined to talk about if you know anybody suffering from some of these disorders, or you yourself have suffered from any of these disorders. But I never knew there were 4 types of bipolar disorder. Number 1 is bipolar 1. It's an illness in which people have experienced 1 or more episodes of mania. Most people diagnosed with bipolar will have episodes of both mania and depression though an episode of depression is not necessarily for a diagnosis. To be diagnosed with bipolar 1, a person's manic episodes must last at least 7 days or be so severe that hospitalization is required. Bipolar 2 is a subset of bipolar disorder in which people experience depressive episodes shifting back and forth with hypomanic episodes but never a full manic episode. Wow. 3. Cyclomanic disorder or cyclomania. Cyclothmania is a chronically unstable mood state in which people experience hypomania and mild depression for at least 2 years. People with cyclothmia, that's what it is, may have brief periods of normal moods, but those brief periods last less than 8 weeks. Number 4 is the bipolar disorder, and this is when a person does not meet the criteria of bipolar 1 or the cyclothmia, but has still experienced periods of significant length of abnormal mood elevation. Okay, now y'all know the related conditions to this is like full anxiety, what they call PTSD, substance abuse disorders. And those are dual diagnoses because usually one of these things then drove you to, using. In my case, and in most musicians' cases, I see that, run around with the mania aspect of it. We self-medicate, or we have self-medicated. So, and that's why you find a lot of musicians or a lot of artists, creative people that are in these cycles. You'll also find substance abuse issues. It's just that simple. And if you don't, consider that wonderful. Anyway, people with bipolar disorder, let me just say this, and psychotic symptoms can be wrongly diagnosed with schizophrenia. Bipolar disorder can be also misdiagnosed as borderline personality disorder, although both of these can run together. That's why you need to just go get yourself checked out. See how you think, I can be overwhelming, I'm sure. I talked to a comedian before that told me they didn't want to deal with their mental health issues because it would take the funny edge off of them. And you're right. But this person's background was so abusive. It was so abusive that it was really the heart of why they were so funny. And I'm sure in their family of origin, they are the almost like the jester, or they're almost like they were like the kid that deflected all the craziness in the family and ended up being a comedian. So, like I said, these personalities and these things are not excuses for people's bad behavior, because just because you got a mental illness does not mean you should escape retribution or consequences for any of your actions. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm just saying, y'all, we a lot more crazier as a nation than we want to give ourselves credit for. Okay? All right. I'm going to go. So if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, share, and leave me a comment below. Tell me what you think, good or bad. If you think it sucks, if you don't believe in this stuff, you can tell me that as well. I welcome your comments below. All right? In the meantime, in between time, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.